Welcome to Living, Breathing, and Having a Good Time. I'm your host, Sierra, and today we have a very exciting guest. We have an intuitive reader, trusted psychic, clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, life coach, and angel psychic. Welcome, Michael Suscott.
Thank you.
From Sarasota. So you drove down to be with us today, and we have a lot of topics to discuss. You're a very interesting person to me.
Oh,
And I met you through some people mutually a few years ago, and I've had readings from you, which have been amazing, by the way. The veil is thinning in the universe as we know it, and there's a lot of things going on in the world today. And a lot of people don't understand what you are. And so you have many gifts. And I want you to explain, because we always hear people talk about, I'm religious, or, oh, I'm spiritual, and I believe in God, and I believe in this. How do your gifts incorporate all of that? And how is it not separate? It's a very broad question.
it is. It's a broad question, but we are built this way, and we are built this way by God. All that is, anything that somebody calls typically God, that is the part of us that's divine and connected with everybody.
Hmm.
And so when we come into this world, we're trying to connect with a family that we will be raised in. That is, we're looking for genetics for personality, but we're also looking for this ability to be able to connect with our higher self. And so that is the soul connection, that when people do as much as they can in the physical world and have friendships and they golf a lot or fish a lot and they're having a great time, but they've got this emptiness where they go, there's more to life than this. That's the part where the spiritual connection comes in. And that's also the part where we are looking for the thing that allows us to know that this isn't all that there is, that there's more to life after we look like we die. Because the part that we bury is the genetics and the personality. The part that lives on is our eternal soul, and we're connected to everybody. It just looks like it isn't in this time frame. And time doesn't really exist either, but I'm always on.
You are. Thank you. I know Sarasota traffic can be iffy. So tell us your gifts. So what is a clairaudient? What is a clairvoyant? What is a psychic medium? There's a lot of people that have questions with these things and they don't understand it.
Well, the clairs are all ways of sensing that are not verifiable or understandable. It's just that you get them in a way that maybe not everybody does. And a lot of times there are other psychics that will pick up on exactly the same thing, but we're all built a little bit differently. It's just like you and I, our genetics are very different. And so our spiritual genetics are different as well. We have hearing from having readings from me that I work a lot in vibrational energy, which is sound. And so
You do.
as a way of connecting with the information that is all around you, I ask you to say your birth certificate name.
You do.
We have a lot of people who are adopted, and so they have their birth certificate name is typically different. And so that is the part where I consider myself a little bit of a forensic psychic too, because I'm able to pick up on information. Our most important things that we have available to us is information that happens from birth through age 6. So 90% of our brain development is done by the age of 5. And so you are in such close proximity with your caretakers, right?
We are.
Point.
We are.
And those are the people we're coming in to work with. And at that point, I also can tell who we are going to do next lives with. It's not as important to me because this is the important one. This is the great one. But I'm getting information that visually looks like a spreadsheet, can sound
Interesting.
give me names and information that is auditory for me, like I can hear it. And then there's other things that you get, like Mother Mary. Like as we have guides, we have angels. They're different. They're not dead people. And we have all of these different things around us that are giving us information and exchanging information on a regular basis. And so for the different gifts, it's like some people are heavier weighted on maybe sound or visual. And so that's where that all comes in. Also, people who do a lot with touch and they work with psychometry, which is like touching objects and being able to get personal information from people.
Jewelry or anything like that.
And there was a heavy training period for me in the 90s. And Dallas is a big
You're from Dallas. My mom's from Dallas. Yes. Yes.
Dallas is a training center, and a lot of people get a lot of their training there. And we all disperse and take that information and go work out there in the world. I always say I'm saving the world one person at a time. But it is an interesting thing that when you go through a lot of training with a lot of different people, that you pick up on certain things. It's like religion. You take and leave what things that resonate with you and just let some of the other things go. But I think that books do such a good job of giving information to people without ego. Because
that's the important part.
because
Yeah.
sometimes people get involved in working with healers or teachers, and they end up like feeling more like a guru.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah, then putting you on the right path to, oh, you want to focus on dreams, or you want to focus on healing this particular portion. Then I feel like my job sometimes tends to be like putting people in touch with the right aspects to get them like just being able to walk down a path that's going to allow them
Get them over the hump. Yeah.
But yeah, the different kinds of clairs are all different ways of gaining information without something that's like obvious.
Got you. Now, just to set the record straight, so when you book an appointment with you, she does not have all your information. So just FYI. So it's not hokey. It's not like one of these people that do background checks. She actually knows nothing about you.
Oh, and I don't want to know anything either. I say
Nothing.
I call it I'm reading blind, because a lot of times people, all I need is contact information. So just your name, your first name, a lot of time, or a phone if we're doing, depending on what it is. But everything I do is sound, so it doesn't matter. I don't need to be in person. Sometimes it's fun just to connect with people in that way.
It was really amazing. She brought through my father that had passed. She brought through my stepfather that had passed. A lot of family members that had passed to me with certain messages and certain things like, okay, you need to focus. This is where you need to focus at because you're a little scattered over here. So we need to get Sierra over here. And it's really neat because did you always have this feeling that this was your gift? Were you like from a little girl, did you just go, wow, this was right in front of you? Or was it something that developed increasingly over time?
My mother didn't know what to do with me, but I was an avid reader from little kid, and the librarian was great because once I found the books that were all about psychic phenomena and everything, then the library, I just read all the time. And I'm a Gen Xer, so that means that we read a lot and did whatever a lot. We were on our
I love holding a book.
Yeah.
I'm writing a book too. So there you go. Yeah. You're writing a book.
It's great to be able to like help people that way because then they've always got something that they can go back and reference.
Yes.
And but the library was a huge thing for me. And I read all of the psychic material that that whole Dewey Decimal System, I covered it. But I remember when I realized I could check out a book, that was a big deal because I brought home this book and my mother looked at it and I was young, really young. And she said, astral projection.
Oh, yes.
But that was the first one I actually brought home. So it was.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So my mom did not really get into all that, but there is an interesting story. She remarried and this guy was a Baptist deacon. And anyway, he was a Baptist deacon, and at first he did not really get any of it.
Right.
Then he died, and it's like, who's the first person to come in and just go, call your mother? I knew when he died. I felt it. I was sitting at breakfast with my roommate, and I said, oh, I think Charles just died. And he said, oh, did he call you? And I said, no, not really. But so anyway, so I tried to reach out to my mom and she said, I'm busy right now. And she hung up. He just, in an intuitive way,
Yeah, bugging
that
you.
way that I get, he just said, call your mom. And this took 2 or 3 days and my mom never called me back. And so finally I called her back and she said, Charles died. And I said, I know. And she goes, what do you mean? And I said, like, he's been on me to get in touch with you and he has a message for you. And he said, next lifetime, we're going to have a big ponderosa. And I said, and
Big
she goes, did he
Ponderosa.
say anything else? Because she's always been so resistant. And
Yeah.
he's resistant too. But he's the first person coming through hard and strong
To
saying,
you.
let her know when we get her a ponderosa next time. So it's just like, just to let her know that it was something that they talked about, having a bigger spread on at their farm or something like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, but I don't get that very often. I think it was because I suspected he was going to die at any time.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, I've noticed this is you're very clear in not telling people like, oh, hey, you're gonna die, or oh, hey, because I think a lot of people think that people like yourself that have gifts are going to tell people like when they're gonna pass.
I
Or
had people who will ask questions about not specifically them, but they'll ask about parents who are elderly and maybe in a different state. And I try not to be judgy about things when I know that they're really trying to do timing for travel and things like that. I will help. And that way
Okay.
they can be aware that they may need to travel in March or maybe the third week of March or it's things like that. So it does come up that way. But
Give
it's
them a
very,
timeline, very vague.
and time is hard because
Time
time
is
doesn't
hard.
exist.
Yes.
But it does. We work with it here in this energy plane. And we're multidimensional. And that's the part that's so interesting about us as humans. And when we are tapping into that portion of it, that's part of the healing and growth that I work with also is because we're multidimensional, we can see things that happen to us that cause self-esteem issues or things maybe different than what we saw them be as children because of our level of understanding.
Yeah.
And what I can do is I can go through a process where I'm able to turn it into something that is more relying on the multidimensional part of it in order to create healing. And so that's where I have fun with that.
So when you talk about multi-dimensional, because a lot of times when you're watching sci-fi movies or you're watching movies and you're they are, and you're watching these shows about the paranormal, can you explain to people how that really works? Because I think a lot of people are very fearful, and there really shouldn't be a fear. But there is. There's a fear of what they don't understand.
Yeah, but I think remember Stranger Things where
Yeah.
they're upside down and all that? I think that they turned it into, they did some really neat things with that, seriously. And
They did.
You look at all of the really well thought out, great screenplays that people have done that.
Ghost. That's another one.
Is one of the most interesting things that really affected me personally with the multidimensional aspect was when my dearest teacher she was diagnosed with cancer.
Aw.
And I had decided that I was going to leave Texas and I was going to move to Florida. And I had his job offer with my company at the time. And I had moved into a show home because I had a really big party.
Oh, you're from Texas, of course.
It's really big. And that was my line of work at the time. So I had all this huge furniture, didn't know what to do. So I moved into the show home, and the lady who was running the show home said, we went to Carrabba's, and she said, oh, by the way, as we're leaving and we paid the check and we're fixing to walk out the door, she said, oh, do you like psychics? Here's this lady's card. So she gives me this lady's card. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's great. I do like them. And my birthday's coming up. So I'll treat myself to a little treat for my
Interesting.
birthday.
Interesting.
And during that time frame, my teacher was very ill. She'd moved in with her mother, and I talked to her every once in a while on the phone, but sometimes she just couldn't strength to do it.
Yeah.
And this is the part where the multidimensional is really amazing, because my teacher was so worried that her family would not tell me, because I don't know, I think maybe I never knew exact age. I think she was around 10 years. Like, so we weren't really cohorts, but she was more like, she would have been like more like a mother figure for me.
Yeah.
And so her family didn't even like what she did. There was a lot of judgment
Of course.
with her brother, especially. And so I would go over, it was real close to where I worked, and I would go over to her brother's house in Frisco, and when she was babysitting her nephew, and we would play with cards, we do healings. I'm a Reiki master, so
Yusui Reiki. Yes.
and we would work on, she was basically working with me in a lot of different ways. And I was trying to give her energy because I knew that she was really ill.
Yeah.
And so when she passed, I knew of her family, but they weren't real receptive to anything.
What you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the day that I went to that lady for my reading for my birthday, she goes, the very first thing she said is, "Oh, your mother just died." And I said, "Oh, she did?" And I think that took her back, because she was thinking, "Oh my gosh," but I'm like, I know who it is. And then she gave me a couple of messages that were very specific. "Oh, she's not coming back." And I go, "Oh, I know." She always said she's not coming back, because we do have a little bit of control over cycles in our development, because we're developing not just here, but we're also developing out in the cosmos as the
Yeah, a lot of people talk about being reborn or reincarnation. And so
it's like that.
yeah.
I think reincarnation is a lot more specific.
Okay.
And a lot more specific to, remember I said that in the beginning that there are 3 things that we're looking for the family that we want to be raised by, right?
Uh-huh.
It's genetics, personality, and that's genetics and personality of people that we're
It
being
is.
raised by too.
Yeah.
And then also the ability to reach our spiritual potential. I wanted to go back and finish how the part with the multidimensional part
Yeah.
fits in with this. So when my teacher, she died that day, like
So
2
sad.
hours or 3 hours before, use time difference, but 2 or 3 hours before my reading. And so when this psychic told me that, "Oh, your mother died," I was like, "Oh," and I wasn't even thinking. And I got out to get a bottle of water at a gas station, and my phone rang, and it had her name on there, and I went, "Oh, no."
Uh-huh.
And there was this pause, and it was her brother. And he said, "Michael, this is her brother." And he goes, "She really was concerned that nobody would let you know when she passed, but she passed this morning." And the whole thing with it being on my birthday, she died on my birthday. She wanted to give a message, and she wanted to make sure that I knew that she had passed. And all of this stuff that, when you look at it, all comes together from it's not coincidental.
No.
Very controlled. And that's the part that the multidimensional part of us is still playing with, because we're coming into when people talk about the way we're built and the way our emotional body has such an impact on our physical body.
Sure. Your emotional and physical body.
Because it's electromagnetic, not particles, but waves.
It
It's
is.
a particle and a wave.
It is.
And so
Your energy.
that energy that people say, "Oh, can you read auras? And can you see auras?" And people who do yoga, people who are doctors, people who are surgeons, as people that are in energy field all day long usually start to see things. And sometimes it's color, and sometimes it's just the energy field. When you're at a gas station, you see the fuse.
Yes.
So a lot of people see that. Some people have little auras, some people have big ones. And
Sometimes they can be very quick.
yeah, especially I remember when I first trained on being able to see auras, there was this one lady that like I could always see her. She was like turquoise. It was just this color, but almost everybody else, it's more of the energy that you can see.
So auras, for a lot of people that don't understand auras, because I know that people even that have been soldiers that have lost their limbs, this is a very good analogy and point to make. They can still feel their leg. So it's phantom pain, but it's still there.
Yeah.
And on an aura imaging machine, it will still appear. So,
And I can still see people's plastic surgery too. I can see their nose that they had fixed. I can see like plastic surgery that has changed their physical makeup, and I
So-
can see it.
so when people get in your aura energy field, because a lot of people that are empaths, we can feel a struggle in huge crowds. It can get very overwhelming. And that's the energy. So whether if someone's around you that brings a very negative energy, angry energy, but then on the opposite end, joyful energy, you absorb that. And I think a lot of people don't understand what auras are and how they affect
I
people.
want to tell you something that is so cool. And I have a lot of great books, like I said, and I read a lot of the really great healer teachers of our time too. And that's always beautiful. But I wanted to say this was a Deepak book. Because he's a doctor. And I think
Oh,
that-
Deepak Chopra?
Yeah.
Oh, I
Oh,
love
I've been calling
Deepak.
by his first name ever since we've met. But no, so Deepak, I think is the one that I think this was in. I'm wanting to say it's about the one about meditation. It's a
Yeah.
meditation book.
Yeah.
And he talks about when you go and have a heart scan, they're not going to put electrodes and stuff directly through your skin and place them to where they're actually touching your heart. But they can get all of this little information that comes all off of it, and it's just from touching your skin, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that a beautiful way of explaining it?
Yes.
You have this energy body that encapsulates us, and it can be big, it can be small, it can be distorted, it can be one side or the other and everything. But the main thing is that we have been playing in our energy fields for
A long time.
it's just, I think that's just such a poignant way of explaining it is with that particular tool.
So if people are having a bad day, or if people are in this low vibrational field, okay, because we come across, you know this, you walk out of your house, you're probably like, oh, thank God. Because you walk out in society now, and you find a lot of these low vibrational people existing. They're not present.
Even if
We do it.
vibrational, we still dip.
Yeah. So how do you hire that? Because I know a lot of people are wondering, because you hear about meditation, you hear about sound healing, you hear about all these things, but how can you really reinforce your energy and really heighten it?
Do you want to hear the easiest,
Yes.
best way to do it?
Yes.
What's the highest vibrational word that you can think of?
God.
God. And what's
Yeah.
another one?
Jesus.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. I like those. I like those. I like anything that anybody thinks is their high vibrational word. I like to use the word love.
I love love.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Love is good. Love is good.
Whatever, because sometimes, and we all have our favorite way.
It's all about love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all have our favorite way of thinking what the ultimate is. And all you have to do is think, see, hear in your mind even. You don't even have to say it out loud, but I'll tell you,
Almost like a
angels love energy. So it's like clapping, singing, but the word love will instantly put you in a different
It's
space.
so true. It really is. Because if you think about it, when a person says, I love you, or they give you a hug and say, I love you, it does. It changes your whole entire vibration. And you brought a little kit with you. And I think it's time to get it out. I like to, okay, so you got,
Favorite deck, and since I had talked about my old teacher, I had so many teachers, I've got to tell you. I've had so many teachers. I've done so many different trainings on different kinds of modalities. But we all have our favorites that we like.
Yeah.
And
I'm very bad at shuffling cards.
Oh, are you? Okay. Okay. So people ask me all the time if I'm a blackjack dealer. But I think that this is a really cool way of doing it, because I do go through a lot of card decks because I still use them because I loved her so much. And a lot of times it's more important. I hear so much feedback from this particular deck. This is not these boxes. I forgot that I didn't bring the right box for it, but it's a Hanson Roberts. She did such a great job with this. it's got a Celtic knot design on the back of
I'm
it.
part Irish.
But I'm Scotch Irish and American Indian.
Yeah.
And her cards were just so beautiful. But what I hear over and over again is when I'm going over, like I said, personality really does play a large part in, what I do, because I have to hone in on what people do. People ask me about work questions all the time.
All the
And
time.
and I have to be able to give them answers about motive. People always want to know, am I going to get a good raise? How's my review going to go? Things like that. And
Yeah.
I have people who call me up totally for spiritual talk. And I love that too. But anything that I can do to help people.
I can see you as a spiritual life coach. Yeah.
But the thing is, everything that I do is to be able to like, I've had people just in crazy scenarios with work situations where, because I'm able to see motive with people and get them how to respond to people in a different way so that they can heal the relationship at work. So
Yeah.
nice. But so a lot of times I'll say, oh, but this guy's, because a lot of people want to know love relationships. And so it's, oh, this guy's really fiery and social and construction work. And I'm just trying to think of what this guy was. But when I'm trying to hone in on what somebody's looking for, a lot of times personality have a lot to do with it.
Yeah, it does.
And
Yeah, it does.
And so then, but it's funny because I have so much feedback with people saying that the person, they really look like that. And so these have just been my go-to.
So when you say tarot too, because I don't mean to be dumb, but there's a lot of people that really don't understand what tarot is.
Okay. It started out a long time ago with cartomancy, which are playing decks.
Okay.
And so rich people used to sit around in parlors and they would play a lot of card games.
Okay.
And part of it was fortune telling also.
Okay.
A lot of the things that people considered women did or whatever.
Sure.
May have a little bit. They keep less records of. How about that?
Okay.
But for cards, in a lot of cultures, there's also a part of it where everybody is always curious about what's going to happen and about the future.
Should I pull a card?
No, we're not working right now. You'd have to give me your name. No, But she also colored this one. This is one of the more traditional Rider-Waite. So when I've been working with somebody for a number of years or whatever, and I know them really well, what I do is I'll change into a more generic deck that has less personality to it.
Yeah.
Is more so that all I'm getting is just circumstance, and then the rest of it's just all that to me in different ways.
That's interesting. So do you intermix this with your psychic mediumship?
Yeah, I do. And the mediumship, I really tend to, I don't usually work with grief like some people. Okay. So there are different modalities in the psychic world. And yeah.
Okay. And psychic mediumship.
So a lot of times people are mediums. It's a variety of a type of person that you would go to if you were having trouble with grief.
Okay.
Because sometimes just knowing that there is something more to this life than just what we see is really important to somebody. So they may want to know that Uncle Fester had a pipe and he wore a green jacket. I get information from Uncle Fester, but it's more about the original journey of life, or just to let the presence be known so that they know that they've got a lot of people that are out there wanting them to be successful or have children sometimes, so that it carries on a family line. Or so with Europeans and with Americans, we're very short.
We tend to be,
our ancestral line isn't as long. And so it is really different. But with what I do, I combine a little of everything because I'm doing background information in order to help somebody heal past things that were created by ancestral issues, things that were handed down from parent to parent that have to do with that block of time that I said that's so important, which is birth through age 6.
Okay.
And so that's where I can usually tell when somebody's
That's
still
interesting.
Yeah. So that's where you can usually tell when somebody's carrying around old information that they learned from childhood. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't create our own self-esteem issues and problems with handling things. Those come up
Right.
later.
You're very vulnerable when you're a child. You're
And
yeah.
everything is language.
Yes,
So
it
you
is.
come in not knowing any language, and that by the time you're 5 years old, you're 90% of that brain development, and it's almost all language. So they are really just absorbing anything. And so people will do things, say things to their partner in the same room as children,
Mhm.
and the kids pick up on it.
They
And
do.
when the
They
kid is
do.
psychic, then I'm always the first to say, okay, you're this child, you can't lie to them. Okay, you
No.
can't tell them that there's a Santa Claus, a Easter Bunny, and
Because
this is
there
not
isn't.
too
We already know there isn't. Yeah.
but when they come in and they're the very first thing is that they are psychic, it's really unusual. There's also a thing called golden, where a person will come in and they can have anything they want in this lifetime. Now, what they choose to do with it is
That's my
up
daughter.
to them.
Uh-huh.
Because they can choose to like just have whatever they want, or they can choose to actually better the world. And that's
Yes.
the concept.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. And then lastly, so you are writing a book. So coming into 2025, what's this book about without saying too much?
All the things that we're talking about.
Okay. Okay. And when is it debuting?
I'm not sure yet.
Oh, they haven't
Not quite
actually.
finished. I've still got other things that I'm like and putting together with it. So it will.
All right. Now, are you doing psychic fairs? Are you doing events? Are you doing?
I used to do a lot of psychic fairs, but the people that I really engage with tend to be people who are on their path, their spiritual
Okay.
path. They're usually higher vibration, and the people who come to me are people who like go, oh, I felt really drawn to you, and the reason why is because of the healing work that I do.
Absolutely.
So I'm not going to be look bright and shiny to somebody who is like doing it for the first time sometimes, or unless they just are on their path and they're hardcore on it. It just
Yeah. Yeah.
the time is right and
Yeah.
they're there.
Yeah.
And that's who will usually work with me. But there's all kinds of modalities, and people have different gifts that they use, and some people are great, and other people are okay, and everybody's hopefully doing it for good. I know that I do.
Exactly.
Like I said,
Exactly.
trying to save the world one person at a time. But
If-
hopefully the book will be able to
Good intentions. Good intentions. Thank you so much for coming in today. We really appreciate it because, again, the veil is thinning right now. So a lot of people are kind of experiencing, I think, just to wrap this up though, in society today, have you noticed or do you have some explanations as to why it becomes more and more intense as that veil thins?
We're going into definitely a different time that we've never experienced before astrologically. And astrology there are some limitations with that as well.
Yeah.
But there is enough going on that's new, and we are ever expanding. Like our universe expands just like we are, right?
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
when you understand that evolutionary as who we are, that all we're doing is coming closer to realizing that we're able to connect with our spiritual, because that's the part that is the most important part of us.
It is. It is.
When you have that kind of connection with and being led, like for instance, there is a particular type of person that is a creative manifester. And when somebody is a creative manifester, they can't say, oh, I'm going to be a fill in the blank when they grow up. They have to experience life and be motivated by interest. With ADHD, right?
Yeah.
Motivated by interest and the next thing that calls them. One of the best things that those people can do, they're usually either physical or they're cerebral.
Yeah.
But they're both creators. And what happens is that type of person needs to just be very aware that when they get an informational, oh, I need to call Evelyn,
And download.
they've got to go call Evelyn, because it's part of the step in the process to getting them to where their
They
whole
need to go.
purpose and destiny is.
Got you. Thank you so much for coming on today. You were so interesting and fun to chat with. And if people want to find you, how do they find you?
941-726-1234.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. How easy.
It wasn't an accident. But my website has a booking calendar within it.
Okay.
And so that's michaelsuescott.com.
Awesome. Okay, Michael, we'll see you next year after your book debuts, and I can't wait.
Thank you so much.